Messias la da lunga su Leao contro Miners, Leao, gol! Ha segnato Leao!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host this week, Anthony Torgard. Ollie is on vacation, but we do have a long voice memo from him because he wanted to share his thoughts on the Barca game. So stick around, you will hear his voice. I know some of you love that. But I do have Madison in his place today, so you guys get that instead.
Yeah, what a great like for like replacement.
Yeah, absolutely. Ball knowledge probably gone up actually. So there's that. It's definitely a positive for the podcast. And I'm actually a prepared host today. I have a bunch of notes because I knew I was going to be host today instead of like when I'm usually host. And that's when Ollie tells me 40 minutes before the episode that he's not going to be there. And then I'm left on an island to figure it out. But I actually have stuff today. And the first thing we're going to talk about.
Ollie's also on an island right now.
He is on an island, yeah. He's in the Canary Islands in Tenerife. But the first thing we got is the Barcelona preview. So that was played in the USA, obviously. It was a very late game for us here on the East Coast. It started at 11 p.m. And it was a work night too. So it was not the most exciting match to stay up for. It was not the most fun to stay up for. But nonetheless, I did it. I was there. I watched. And let me say first, watching it live, this game was a drag. It was really rough to follow along. It seemed boring. It seemed like nothing was going right. I did watch the highlights before we recorded today, and it was actually not a bad game. And obviously, those are highlights. It's meant to make it look good, but it was a lot longer of a video than I anticipated it to be. I thought it'd be like 2 minutes, but it was a little over 10. So good amount of stuff happened. First thing in like the 3rd minute and again in the 5th minute and again in the 7th minute, Tomori, again, really bad giveaways, just putting us in danger left and right. They almost scored off his first one that he gave away. It was like a direct pass to one of the Barca players that they played youth players in the first half, so I didn't really know much of the squad. But yeah, Tomori looked really, really poor. But then Reinders, looking great, man. Our midfield's actually looking promising, at least going forward. I'm not sure what you think of him, but I think he's really shown that he's going to be a pivotal part, and probably even when Benacer's back, I bet he still plays.
Yeah, I think my biggest worry right now is the defense. Tomori, his first, 6 months here, he was like, I don't know if we were just like really poor before that, and he just came in and stepped his game up. And was trying to earn a permanent transfer or something, but I feel like he's been very hot and cold. So defense is definitely what I'm most worried about right now.
Yeah, but I would agree with that. And I think Chow also is showing just how raw he is. He didn't make any like crazy huge mistakes in this Barca game, but you saw him against Real, you saw him against Juventus. He's not the rock that we thought he was, and that's okay. He, like you said, he's young, he's new. It's just because Tomori and Kalulu hit the ground running, and now they're having that drop off that we're kind of putting a lot more pressure on Chow than we should. But yeah, Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Reinders, their link of play is incredible. Ruben played a nice through ball to Reinders, who was making a run, and he actually had a shot on target that was just saved. It was a really nice save from the goalkeeper there from Barca. So we started off looking well, and then Pulisic took a corner right after that was, yet again, picture perfect. Found Tomori's header, who was wide open, and honestly, it should have been a goal, or at the very least on target, but Tomori just hit it straight up. Yeah, I mean, Pulisic is proving to be very good on these dead ball situations. I think he's got 2 assists from corner kicks and 1 from a free kick. I could be wrong on those numbers, but he's been putting in the right balls left and right. So really happy with that. I'm curious to see if he's going to be a starter out and out the whole season.
I was about to ask.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's going to play, because unless, like, if we're playing a 4-3-3, we don't need an attacking midfielder. And he left Chelsea to get more playing time. I don't see him wanting to join us just to sit on the bench again, right?
That's my thought too. And the way I'm seeing him play is I'm torn. Sometimes I'm like, all right, he definitely needs to be out wide because he's fast. That's his best
Mm-hmm.
ability. You know, if he's wide, he has the space and he could actually take players on. But then you see him trying to get as close to the middle as possible. So I'm thinking maybe he does want to be down the middle, but I don't know if that's working out the way it should. You know, like he hasn't had any goals in preseason, and that's okay. But he also hasn't had many opportunities for goals either. I mean, his crosses are finding players and he's getting the assists, but I don't know. I'm really curious on where he's going to play as well, because if we switch to the 4-3-3, you know, he might play as like a pseudo attacking mid and just be a really attacking oriented center mid, you know. But then you look at the rest of the midfield and Loftus-Cheek and Reinders, and they're all doing that. So I don't know where he's going to play. It'll be interesting. I think he'll definitely start the first few games at least, while Chukwueze is still adapting. I mean, this is today. We're recording Monday the 7th. This is the first time that Chukwueze's had training with the squad, because they've been gone since he's been signed, and then they went on vacation. So it's I don't know. I don't think he'll be ready to start the first game of the season. I believe that's on the 21st. So we're 2 weeks out. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think Pulisic will get a run to begin the season, and then they might alternate, and they might be half starts for each, you know, like how Macias and Salamakers were swapping every other game, something like that. But at least this time it's with good players. Then I wrote Mike's distribution's back on par. I saw quite a few times those huge throws from obviously his box all the way to Leao or all the way to Tateo at the halfway line or further into their own box. One of those chances led to a Leao shot on target. One of them led to a Teo shot that was off target. It went behind the goal. And then Leao had another chance right after that should have went in. I believe it was at the start of the second half that his second shot, he had a curler from the top of the box, and it just went wide or just higher, but really close. So Leao's looking sharp. He didn't look sharp his first friendly, but obviously now that he's got more practice under him, he's looking a lot sharper now that the summer's over. And then the obvious point after that was Ansu Fati scored a fucking screamer in the 55th minute. And after that, there really wasn't anything else. We took all of our players off, and they actually put on Lewandowski and more of their starters at that point. But luckily, our backups weren't able or were able to stop them from scoring again. But there wasn't any action after that Fati screamer. It sounded like they both were playing for the first goal and then just running around, you know. Yeah, not much else after that. But I do have a 5-minute voice clip from Ollie that I'm going to insert here. I haven't listened to it yet, so he might just say everything I just said. He might be different. I don't know. But you'll know because you're going to see it right now. So hopefully that's good, and we'll see you guys in just a second.
Hello, everyone. Sorry that I can't be there on this week's episode of the podcast. I'm currently in Tenerife, which is the Canary Islands, and just enjoying a vacation before the season starts. But due to the fact that I was flying at 6 o'clock in the morning on the day of the Barcelona friendly, which kicked off at 4 in the morning, it meant I was able to inadvertently watch it. So I thought I'd share some thoughts on the game. Just as a replacement for actually being on the pod, mainly just so I can rant and get it off my chest as well. Where to start? I mean, it was a tough game to watch. I think for those people that thought it would be an absolutely seamless transition to a 4-3-3 system, it's become apparent during these preseason games in America that it is going to take a bit of time before every player, especially the newest signings, are fluid with the mechanisms. I think we got caught in transition quite a few times. We struggled to keep pace with Barcelona when they managed to get some of their passing combinations going. It's also worth noting that this wasn't Barcelona's full-strength 11 by any means either, so I expected us to at least be able to cause them a few more problems at the other end. There's something that stood out though during these games against Real Madrid, Juventus, and obviously most recently Barca, is that I think we struggled in open play to create stuff, to be honest. Obviously, we scored a screamer and a set piece against Real Madrid. we scored 2 set pieces against Juve, and we failed to score against Barcelona. So I think there are some worries there. And also, Giroud looked incredibly isolated, and we saw it at times last season where we just failed to get him into the game, and there weren't any more reassuring signs in that sense, really. Some of the players looked like they were trying to make an impact, but just seemed rusty. Teo falls into that category. Liao, we saw a couple of runs from him in the game, but decision-making wise perhaps wasn't all there. Loftus-Cheek, I think he's going to be really good against the sides that come and play with a low block, because he's a busy player and he likes to get on the ball, drive forward and make things happen. Can say the same for Reinders, to be honest, but we're just yet to see that end product from him. He tends to do the hard yards and then lay it off to a winger who perhaps doesn't have the space, or doesn't look to get back into the game after that. So there's just a few things that need to come together, really. I think Chiao and Florenzi struggled on the right side of the defence as well. That was clearly the area that Barca were targeting, and I think that most teams have targeted throughout this pre-season, to be honest. So it should hopefully look different once Chiao and Tomori get some chemistry going, once Teo gets fully into the swing of things, and hopefully when Calabria comes back at 100% from his muscle fatigue, maybe even look at playing Kalulu on that right side if we're still getting constantly exposed down there. Kier came on and struggled. He made a mistake. Just kind of reaffirms my belief that he isn't going to be up to the level for us, and that we really need a centre-back signing in before the end of the window. But I thought Kalulu came on and looked pretty bright. Bartoszagi was the one who came off the bench and actually made up for that Kier error. And there are some reports suggesting that we might promote him to the first team permanently to become the backup left back. And to be honest, there's been some impressive signs from him, so I'm not dead against it. But I think the Barcelona game was not a good spectacle, to be honest. I didn't enjoy it. Would have been gutted if I'd woken up just for that, to watch it, and a 1-0 defeat and another game in the US without a win. But I just think that it perhaps pumps the brakes on some of the excitement that fans rightly have after a summer of 8 signings. And got to bear in mind, we haven't seen 3 of them yet. And I think there'll be 3 difference makers. But yeah, the cohesion isn't quite there yet. We're still getting caught in similar situations to last season. Yes, I don't think results are important, especially when it comes to pre-season games versus, say, those mid-season friendlies last year with the World Cup. But it does give you some concrete things to take from the game, and yeah, that was just it. I don't think our rhythm was there. I don't think our decision making's there. It's hopefully something that will snap into place with a bit of confidence. Obviously, we'll get a few more reps with the games coming against Monza, Trento, Novara, and I think we've got another one as well. Those will be important. Hopefully, score some goals in them and get the ball fully rolling. But yeah, that's what I took from it. A rather subdued tour of America, but fun to play some games in a different environment, play some top opponents, and put the players through the paces early on.
All right. Well, thank you, Ollie, for that lovely voice note. I'm sure it was riveting for you guys to listen to it. I'll listen to it when I watch the video back, but I don't know what he said. Hopefully nothing too rude. But yeah, talking points now. Really just transfers. So the obvious one, and this is what the bonus podcast will be about later this week, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but Madison, you're very thrilled on this one.
I actually have his jersey in my cart right now because they finally put it up on the site after me checking for like 3 days straight.
Are you getting this one or are you getting the away?
The away. I don't like the home one.
Yeah, this was the only one available. So this is actually my first time ever wearing the home shirt. It's been hanging up, as you guys have seen. And I was like, I've never worn this. I might as well put it on for one. And since it was just Americans, I figured I'd throw on the American shirt. And when I took it off the hook, the tags were still on. That's how often I wear these, which is never. But yeah, Yunus Musa, deal done.
I'm not worried. That's why I'm like, do I buy his jersey? I don't wear jerseys,
Right. Yeah. All of those have been worn at least once or twice, but yeah, I don't think it would get a whole lot less. I know my CDK jersey I bought, didn't wear it over the summer one. I wore it for the first game of the season, and then I didn't wear it after that. So it got one wear.
For good reason.
Yeah.
But
20 million euros for Yunus Musa. Happy
I am
with that
way
deal?
more hype about this transfer than Pulisic. Only because Pulisic has been around Europe for a few years. People know a little bit more about him. Like, he has his moments, but, I didn't watch Valencia one bit last season, but I watched Musa with the national team. And the kid is good. Like, he's definitely a raw talent still. He's only like 19 or 20. But you could see.
My dog's throwing up. Give me a second. I'm going to pause this shit. Fuck. Keep talking. I'll just remove me.
Shit, now I'm all distracted. He's still a really raw talent, but you can still see that, he has his ability there. He's good on the ball. He's good off the ball. And hopefully he gives what he gives in the national team at club level. When he was walking in for, I think it was one of his medicals, he was trying so hard not to just like smile, right? Because like you could just tell that he was so happy. He grew up in Italy, so like he knows what it means to wear the Milan shirt. And yeah, hopefully in the next few years he earns a starting job. So
yeah, I agree. I think he's a fantastic player. Like I said, I haven't watched much of Valencia. We've talked about that. But I like everything I've seen on the national team, and I think he was very happy to be at Milan, and that's an important thing. So I'm excited. I don't know when he's going to start playing right away. I don't think he slots in immediately, but yeah, excited to see what he can do. At the very least, he's going to be the first guy off the bench, which means he'll play every game, as we know with the way Pioli operates. So Yunus Musa is here. We're all excited about it. But from one midfielder in, we have a midfielder out. And we already alluded to it with that jersey purchase I made last season. CDK, out the door, going to Atalanta. It is an interesting deal. I'm in two minds about it. I wanted to because then they'll activate the option, and we could be done with him, move on. And also then his career is good because I still like the kid. I just don't think he's good enough for us. But also if he flops, then we have an opportunity to sell him out. Right? I don't know. Get him out the door. Just get him out the door. I think that's what I talked myself into. I
don't like that we're just like giving up on him so easily. God, my phone always, whenever I text, it always does text to speech as soon as I send my text. It's really fucking annoying. Sorry. Because we did the same thing with Paqueta, and he's good now. He's not like a fucking baller, but he would definitely add value to our side now. But we've heard like rumors from like the camp and stuff that like even in practice, CDK just is not good.
Yeah.
Right. So, I don't know.
I think the biggest part of it too is
to like give up on them. Like I'm always like, give them time. But
yeah, I think one of the big points on this is moving away from that 4-2-3-1, getting rid of the attacking mid position. If CDK is out the door, and we know Adley has rumors to leave, then we're probably not going to have that attacking mid anymore, which also raises the question about Pulisic. We don't know what's going to happen with him. So it becomes a little odd there. But just to give a little detail on the deal, it's a €3 million loan fee that Atalanta is paying us up front. They have an option of 22 million with 4 million in bonuses. So it depends on either his performance or the team's. It wasn't specified, but that can go up another 4. And then there is a 10% resale for when Atalanta inevitably sell him on to someone. We get 10% of that, which is nice. And then they're covering his entire 2.9 million euro salary for this season. That's enough for us to break even. It's not enough for us to gain anything outside of the resale value. So it's basically just admitting defeat and giving up on the player. It's not like we're profiting. We're not making a loss, so it's not devastating on the books. But it's I don't. It's kind of a sad end to a story that really wrote all of last summer. Waiting forever for a transfer, how long it took to get this deal done, how excited I was, and plenty of other fans, and then the way it went all year. It is kind of sad, but he's a young player. He's got an opportunity elsewhere, and maybe he thrives. The other player who might be leaving is, again, another midfielder, Rade Krunic. Fenerbahce is really interested in him. They're offering 10 million to Milan, but we're requesting between 15 and 18 million for him, which I think is the right thing to do. I don't think he's worth 15 to 18 as a player, but I do think to us as a team, he is, because the options off the bench are thin. I know we've signed a lot of midfielders, but we've also lost a lot of them. So if you look at who we have depth-wise, it's still really Krunic and Pobega. It's not a whole lot right now. So to get rid of him, it needs a hefty fee, because he is someone that Pioli utilizes quite often, and he's someone who brings something to this team. I would much rather Krunic coming off the bench than Pobega, or some of the other youth players that we used to bring on. So it's a tough one. If we do get rid of him, it's got to be, again, a fee, 15 to 18. And we got to bring in someone good. He needs to be replaced immediately. It can't be just an outgoing where we pocket the money to offset our purchases. It has to be replaced. And there's two names linked to replace him: Nicolas Dominguez from Bologna or Martin de Roon from Atalanta. I'm not.
I know.
I think Dominguez is a better option than de Roon. I don't have anything like tactical or in depth on de Roon. I just know that I don't like him because he tweets a lot and he talks a lot of shit about Milan after games.
Perfect person to have join though, because it means that he might try a little harder.
It might, or it might.
He talks shit because he's a hater, because he knows that we're good, right?
Sometimes it's because we mess up. Other times it's because we beat him, and then he's just like, it wasn't that bad or something. I don't know. I just don't like him. I'd rather him not come. I'd rather Dominguez. I think he's a decently cheap option that gives us a bit more defensive coverage. I think they were saying 10 million for him, so we actually get to keep a little bit of that Krunic money if we do get what we want out of him. And I don't know if we will, to be honest with you. We might just hold on to him. Fenerbahce is offering not what we want, obviously, and we don't need to offload Krunic. Krunic can stay. He could play a role. He has opportunity in this team still, so I don't think he needs to go anywhere. I don't know. What are your, final thoughts? Krunic, sell him?
I'd rather him not leave. Yeah. Out of both those players mentioned, I'd rather have Krunic. But if he wants to leave for more playing time, I think as things stand, he's going to get a lot of playing time, right? But
yeah,
he knows his place is not as a starter. So I can understand if he'd want to leave.
Yeah. And I do think currently he might start the first couple games. I mean, and we'll get to it later. The game tomorrow, he's in the expected lineup to start again. So he's going to get game time. We know he'll get game time. It's just, is he the starter? Probably not by the end of the year. Is he going to make more money at Fenerbahce? Yeah, definitely. They're offering him more. And there's rumors that he said either sell me or match the salary. And we're saying, you don't make the rules around here, buddy. So we'll see what happens with that. It's interesting. Hopefully it doesn't end in a spoiled relationship, because I think he's been a really good servant of the club.
And he has his moments, right?
Yeah. He has plenty of great games. He's got plenty of bad games, but plenty of good ones. Speaking of someone who doesn't have plenty of good games, Foto Ballatore also on the way out. Werder Bremen's offering between 3 and 5. I think we're inclined to accept that. We're going to see what happens there. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too bothered if he leaves. He doesn't play enough, so I think that's going to make the replacement difficult, because obviously you don't go to a club when you're told, hey, you're going to be a backup to a very fit, healthy left back who is arguably the best in the world, who's going to play every single game unless he says he doesn't want to. So don't expect to play a whole lot. That's a hard pitch to give someone, So they're going to go someone young, someone who's willing to sit back and learn from Teo. But at some point, a young player is going to want to play or leave. So I don't know how it's going to go. Rumors are Ricardo Calafiori from Basel. We want a loan, which makes sense because it would be a young player who wants to learn and then go get game time that we can offer him. But Basel wants a permanent deal. There's no fees mentioned on that, but I feel like that doesn't happen. If one team wants a permanent deal, the other wants a dry loan. It's probably unlikely. But that's the only name we have mentioned for left back, and that's really all the transfers there. I don't know. Did you see anything I missed?
No.
Yeah, that's about it. Oh, there was one more. Redondo, I can't think of his first name. Fernando Redondo. His son, we're linked with him, and I don't even know what position he plays. Probably a midfielder. I feel like that's what we're going for right now. And I know nothing about him. I don't know where he's at. So that's another link. But that's all I saw when I was browsing the site. Moving on to the Trofeo Berlusconi. Play Monza.
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Italy time. So
I was like, that's late if it's over there. If it's 9 p.m. here, like shit.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know what is that for us on the East Coast. That's 3 p.m.
Yeah, I wonder if like starters will be playing.
Yeah, so I have the lineup, and it's basically full force. Mike, and then either Clue or Florenzi because Calabria is still out. Chow, Tomori, Teo, Loftus-Cheek, Krunic, Reinders, Pulisic, Giroud, Leao. So
I hope Okafor comes on for Giroud at halftime.
I do too. I think
because
I'm curious
we have
what's
not seen
happen.
him at all.
Yeah,
and he's going to be taking Giroud's position before we know it.
I think so too. And another thing I was thinking of was Okafor replaces Giroud, or he's first off the bench for Leao when he needs a rest or a breather or whatever,
Right.
if we got a Champions League game. And then I was thinking maybe Christian also plays striker. He used to do that for the national team very, very briefly. He was, and it wasn't my favorite thing I've seen. But I'm just trying to figure out how do we fit him in? All of a sudden his role is gone.
I think we're staying a 4-2-3-1 until we get a deeper midfield, right? Like we have a lot of players who can play the same position all over the team, except for defense. Defense, oddly, is our thinnest squad right now, or I guess our thinnest part of the squad.
Right. Yeah.
But like I feel like our midfield and our attackers, like they can all rotate a lot, which is nice because we have not had that.
And that's definitely something that Pioli always looks for when he asks for a new player. Like everyone outside of Leao, can play a different position on the field. Or, well, I guess Giroud's not going to be playing anywhere else either. But Okafor can be a left wing. He could be a striker. Pulisic, left wing, right wing, midfield, or attacking mid. Chukwueze, right wing, left wing. Like you're getting people who could play everywhere. Most of the midfield is interchangeable also. We've seen Krunic play as an attacking mid. We've seen him play as a defensive mid. So there definitely is a lot of interchangeability there, which is very helpful for overlapping runs. My big thing, and I mentioned it last week, but you're touching on it now as well, is our defense is being left exposed because our midfield is so attacking oriented that they're pushing forward. We're putting on pressure. We're getting the shots off. But as soon as we miss that shot or it's saved and they counter, they're instantly at the throats of our center backs because there's no midfield to make up for it. There's no defensive midfielder protecting them. So they're being left exposed for what they are, and they're no longer looking as sharp as they once were when they had Kessie physically defending them, Tonali physically defending them, Benacer defensive. When we had a very defensive-minded midfield that was not the most prolific in goals, but we never let anything in, and that's why we won the Scudetto 2 years ago. Now we're looking at a team that is probably going to put 75, 85 goals this season, but I don't know how many we're going to concede. It's probably not going to be 40 or whatever it was when we won. It's going to be probably a bit higher. So I'm curious if we're going to see these high-scoring games, 5-3s, 4-2, stuff like that. And it makes me a little nervous, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I mean, I don't
I
know
think we're
anything
gonna be
about
scoring
Monza's
tons
team.
though.
Exactly. We're going to be banging in goals, which is exciting. That's fun. That's football people want to watch. It just, at the end of the day, it matters if you win or not. So we'll see. And I don't think it's going to go well for us in the Champions League if we can't get the defense on point.
I think Tomori will get back in form.
I hope so.
Tomori
I feel
and
like every
Kalulu
big
were
game he
unstoppable at
flops.
one point. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to be managed correctly.
Yeah.
And by the
I
time
do
we
think
play
we
in
need
knockout
another
stages of the Champions League, they'll be managed just fine because we'll have a new one.
a new manager.
Yeah. By January, for sure.
You think Pioli's gone by January?
Listen, Jerry doesn't just invest all this money to have a coach lose games, right? I think Pioli's on a tight rope.
That I agree with. I think he doesn't have the excuse anymore of, Maldini bought players he wanted, not players I wanted. Because now it's, okay, you're getting every player you're asking for. So if Pioli can't do what he wants with
Pioli was
his
never
men,
really that great of a coach. Zlatan won us the Scudetto.
yeah. Well, Pioli was never meant to stay. He was
right
caretaker or whatever, and then became the manager. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think we need another center back. I'm hearing Caldara might actually stay for the final year of his contract as the 5th choice center back. It'd be funny to see him finally get a game after 5 years of being on contract.
I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll come in and we'll be like, holy shit, we got to re-sign this guy.
Right. Imagine that. He has a good run of form. We re-sign him and then he flops again. But yeah, Trofeo Berlusconi.
Wages.
I don't know shit about Monza's team. I don't know how they're going to line up. I don't know how they've looked in preseason. I don't even know how we're going to do this. Last time there was a Trofeo Berlusconi, it was like a round robin of 3 teams, and they were 30-minute games, and each 30 minutes you swap teams that you're playing with. It was ridiculous. This is the weirdest preseason tournament game. I know that they changed it from the Trofeo Luigi Berlusconi to now the Silvio Berlusconi Cup or something like that, but I think it's just us and Monza playing a regular 90-minute game now. So who knows? That should be on the Milan app, the Milan YouTube page. Look for it there. Otherwise, I don't know how you're going to watch it, but it's not a big game. So if you miss it, you miss it. It's not the end of the world. Don't worry. And of course, we'll tell you a very brief summary of what happened. So there's that. And that was the final talking point I had.
Monza drew Everton in a behind doors game.
Well, then
Monza drew Everton in a behind the door. Yeah, right. We should. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see. We'll go to listener questions now, and I think we got a decent amount of them. Let me just pull them up on my computer here, and I'll just read them fresh. So we'll just go through these bad boys. First one is something we actually kind of touched on already. Do you think Pioli should start Okafor at striker? I hope he does. That was from Christian Espinoza. Yes, I think he should. I think he's a fast, mobile striker. He's got friendship with Leao. He knows Chukwueze as well. And it makes sense for the new way we're going to play. So, yeah, definitely. Okafor up top. Yeah.
I want that very bad.
Yeah. And you had mentioned it earlier as well. So, I'm sure we see him in the second half. We probably should see Chukwueze in the second half of the Berlusconi thing. So, expect that as well. This is from PD1899. Thoughts on De Bruyne for Krunic? Personally, don't think he's technically gifted enough. Yeah, I already touched on that as well. I don't like him, so I'd rather Krunic stay.
Krunic is like the perfect utility player.
Yeah, exactly. He can play anywhere in the midfield. He does box to box. He does attacking mid. He does defensive mid. He'll do it all. And he's not afraid to get a yellow card when needed to. And he knows that he's expendable in that sense that, we could go a game or two without him if we need to, if he needs to pick up a suspension or something. So he's valuable. He's very good to have for us. This one is from Football Drawn, and thank God I mentioned it because he's asking us our thoughts on the links to Fernando Redondo's son for Arista. So I was right that he plays in the midfield as well. As we touched on that, I don't know anything about him. I don't know what team he's on. But he also asked if we have any memories from the senior Redondo himself from his time at Milan. Now, I'll be honest. I was 6 years old when he played for us. I didn't have access to Serie A in the United States in the year
I didn't know what Serie
1999.
A was.
Exactly. I wasn't watching. I wasn't even trying to watch. So no, I don't have memories. So football drawn, I think you win the award for us giving you the worst answer ever on the podcast, because the answer to each of your questions was I don't know. But thank you for asking it, and you make fantastic videos, so can't wait to see your next one there. Michael Gambino. A lot of rumored strikers are looking to be picked up. Would you try and hijack Balogun this season or wait for a big name next summer?
I don't think Balogun's a big name. He is, let me rephrase that. He's not a big player. He's a big name because he scored 24 goals in a Farmers League this past season, but he scored like 4 goals for Middlesbrough and the championship the season before that. Like, I understand that players do progress in their career and they do get better. I don't think that he's worth what Arsenal are asking for because he hasn't really proven himself yet. I would rather spend 60 million on someone who is well worth it than, gamble 45 to 50 on someone who we don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of him. I do think he is a big name, being the American striker, that obviously gives huge eyes and value there. I think it was more than 24 goals in French League. I'm
not sure.
It was definitely a lot. He was up there for sure. Which
he
is
been
huge,
our top scorer.
That is one of the top leagues in Europe. So I would rank that above the championship for sure. But at the end of the day, you're right. That's his breakout season. And it could be the launching point for a very storied career. Or it could be a one-season wonder. And we've seen that happen with plenty of players. Piontek coming to mind immediately.
He scored 22.
Oh, wow. Is even less? Okay. I thought it was more. But 22 goals like that would be our top goal scorer. Now, 22 in the French league probably is about 13, 14 in Serie A, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But I do think he would slot in well with our team, especially having 2 other Americans that he would know. He knows some other guys from his time in England, Loftus-Cheek, Tomori. They obviously were close in London together. He's got these connections already. So there's that. I do think he's highly linked to Inter, and that's the most likely thing. He did put
their bid was turned down.
Of course it is. They don't have the money. But we'll see come the end of the window when Arsenal haven't made the sell that they thought they were going to make, because Arsenal don't need him. They don't have a spot for him. So maybe he'll take another one at the end of it. Who knows? But I don't know if he's worth 50 million. I don't think he is yet. He could be. He could be worth even more in the future. But as of right now, with one good season, 50 mil's too much. The only way that would happen is if we made another big sale. And I don't want to make another big sale. I think we're good with just a Tonali departure. So for me, no, don't sign Balogun if possible. I would wait for a big game next summer. And I still think that we're going to be putting Band-Aids on the striker position year after year until Camarda rises up from the Primavera and is ready to play senior ball. For the new listeners, we have a 15-year-old in our youth system who's scored, and this is not an exaggeration, over 700 goals for our youth system already by 15. He's now playing with the under-19s at 15 years old, and he's still banging them in left and right. So there's a lot of hype going into this kid, and he might be the next big thing. He might flop once he gets to senior level. You never know. There's so many variables with that, but I think the club's really banking on that because the obscene amount of goals is just unheard of. That doesn't happen unless you're one of those top caliber guys. So
yeah, people have been comparing him to Hakeem Mastore. If you guys remember him, he was the next big thing too.
Right, and that's why I'm scared.
I think he's playing Renaissance Zamora. You tell me where they are.
That is a 3rd division Austrian team. I just made that up, but I know he's not up
Morocco.
There. 3rd division Moroccan team?
1st division.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah. So that tells you all you need to know about that. But yeah, Camarda might be good. He might be not. And I'm really nervous about that. So that answers that question there. John Bonac. Hey guys, is it going to be a 4-2-3-1 to accommodate Pulisic behind the striker, or 4-3-3, leaving Pulisic to fight it out with Chukwueze for the right wing spot? Love your work, John from Australia. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Kind of touched on it, but also I don't know. I think it's going to be a 4-3-3, and I think he's going to fight for his spot. I think they're going to rotate. I don't know who the main starter is going to be. I think there's going to be one guy who's going to be the clear starter for Champions League, another for for Serie A in the Cup or something like that, or Champions League in the Cup, and then one for Serie A.
I don't foresee Pulisic being at this team for a long time, to be honest. Like, he's a good off the bench player, but he doesn't want to be an off the bench player. Mm-hmm. He wants to be a star. And I've never seen Chukwueze play, but something tells me that he is going to be far better than Pulisic.
I'm torn because you never want a player to do bad, but I really want Pulisic to be the starter, and I want it to be definitive and clear. But I also don't have an issue with him being the first off the bench for the attacking trident. I think a guy with his skill set coming in 65, 70 minutes played on fresh legs, he could do a lot of damage like that. A lot. So I think that is a perfect position for him. But obviously no player, especially not one his age with his name value, marketability, wants to be the guy who plays 30 minutes every game to close out the game. He wants to be first whistle. He wants to be starting. He wants to be the star. And I get that. Maybe he doesn't want to be the star. He seems very humble, but he wants to be the guy, and that's fair. Every player should want to be the guy and should have the right to fight for that. But I don't know where he's going to play. I think it's looking a little grim for the boy here. But I got hope. I have faith. And I think ultimately it's going to be they're both starters and they're rotating, because let's be real. Christian also has injury issues. Mm-hmm. And the easiest way to avoid that is to keep him off the field. So if they're alternating, if he's only playing, 20 games a season versus 48, which I think is our minimum for next year, was 48. I think he's going to play half the games. Either it'll be Chukwueze, or they'll play all the games, but they each only start half and come on the second half of the other one. It'll be interesting to see, but their minutes will probably be around similar. Next question from Archer Diego. Do you see Pioli finishing the season in charge of Milan? What do you reckon should happen to him to step down? And who are your ideal replacements?
That's that one more time. I was working.
You're fine. Do you think Pioli will be here at the end of the season? What needs to happen for him to be replaced? And who would you replace him with?
I already answered that question. So no, I don't think he'll be here at the end of the season. I think if he is fighting for like a top 5 position, he's going to get replaced rather fast. I don't know who will replace him at all.
Yeah, I think it's too early to say who's going to replace him because we are getting so many new players in a new system that we got to see how it works before we find out who we think is going to best fit the system that we're building here. Because ultimately you don't go through a rebuild just to go through another one in the same season, right? Like that's a quick recipe for failure. But if Pioli fails or isn't in a good spot, even like you said, by January, if we're not in the knockout stages of the Champions League, if we're out of the cup or only made it one round of the cup and we're not top 3, I would say by January, then yeah, he's probably gone. If he just edges top 4 at the end of the season, I could see him making it till next summer, but then being replaced. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he makes it all the way or not. I got a sneaky hunch we might win the Scudetto this year, but besides that, if we don't, he's gone for sure. And as for who replaces him, that's too many moving parts, too far away in the future. Yeah. From Casey Cordray, what is Musa's role going to be with the new midfield rotation? How do you see Milan in their first 5 games? Well, first 5 games are not easy. We have Roma week 3, and then we have Inter week 4. The other 3 games in order are Bologna, Torino, and then Roma, Inter, and then Hellas Verona. At worst, that should be 11 points, right? Yeah. Like there's no reason we shouldn't beat the 3 that aren't Roma and Inter, we should at least be picking up a point from each. Now, Inter's a tough one because, let's be real, they smoked us 4 games in a row last season. If we lose to them, it's nothing new. It's nothing unexpected, but we should be looking to at least get one back on them there. Roma, again, the same. We had 2 draws against them last season. One of them should have been a loss, but one of them should have been a win. So that's an interesting game as well. I'm going to go with 11 points to open the 5-game stretch there. As for where Musa plays, I think we're going to shoehorn him in as a defensive midfielder who's going to be allowed to go forward as long as someone else locks back when he does. I think they're going to have a kind of rotational like that, but he's the only one who has any experience playing as a defensive midfielder, even though that's not his primary position. And he's not he's new to it. We've only seen it during the Gold Cup, or was it Nations League?
Nations League.
Yeah, during Nations League. So it's not a whole lot of games of experience, but it is experience there that Loftus-Cheek doesn't have, that Reinders doesn't have. Krunic does, but we don't know if he's going to be here come then. So, that's a little iffy. I think he's either going to be a starter or he's first off the bench. Those are my ideas.
I think first 5 games we'll have 12 points. I think that we beat everyone. Inter is the one I'm unsure about.
Yeah.
I think that Inter have gotten weaker this transfer window. But for some reason, we still don't know how to beat them. Roma have literally signed nobody. I think they signed 1 free agent. Right?
They've signed a couple, actually. I think.
Maybe they spent no money.
Yeah,
and they signed right. 2 players. But still a Mourinho team is hard to beat. But if we win our first 3, then I'm assuming Roma and Inter are back-to-back. So if we win our first 3, then I think that will be Roma. Musa, I think he's going to be a Krunic replacement. Mm-hmm. But they're going to try to mold him into a defensive midfielder. So,
yeah. So Roma's departures are just kind of like random names. The biggest one that I saw was Justin Kluivert with the Bournemouth.
Did El Shaarawy resign?
I don't see
free agent.
Him as a free agent or anything. I think he has 1 more year, right?
I thought he was a free agent this summer.
I think you're right. Yeah, because I'm not seeing him in their squad list, so he didn't get re-signed. Oh no, FotMob has him listed as a defender. I don't know what the fuck they were.
FotMob is special.
Yeah, that's weird. But yeah, bringing them in, they've brought in the biggest names: Evan Ndika, Husa Mayor, and Diego Llorente. But that's it. Oh, and they re-signed Belotti, who technically was a free agent. But that's it. They haven't brought in a whole lot of players. They haven't spent any real money. And the rest of the questions, just reading over them now, are things we have actually already touched on. So I think that covers it. Did you have any final thoughts?
No.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who's made it this far. If you're still listening, or if you haven't already, subscribe to our Substack. I am so sorry I don't have the list of founding members. I just realized I forgot to do it at the beginning. So I guess I wasn't as prepared as I thought, but shout out to all of you. And we'll read your names off next week. Thank you, everyone, for making it this far. We'll catch you next time.
Teo. Gol! Ancora Teo! È una meraviglia! Il gol di Teo Hernandez da un'area all'altra! È una meraviglia! Senti il mio...